Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be tackling something that I think a lot of people think is pretty simple, but I think we're going to find out it's a lot more complicated than we think. And that is pride. We're going to be looking at some excerpts from the book Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, specifically Chapter 9, which is all about pride. And we're going to find out, I think, how this emotion that we often think of as a good thing can actually be a real sneaky source of stress and vulnerability.
Yeah, it's so interesting how we kind of equate pride with, strength and accomplishment.
Yeah.
But this chapter really kind of pushes back on that notion, saying that pride at its core is actually destructive.
Okay.
And the reason it says that is because it lacks one crucial element, and that is love.
So how does that actually play out in real life? What are some examples of pride being destructive?
Well, the book gives a whole range of examples, everything from, like overvaluation of oneself to, outright arrogance and judgment of others. It even links pride to, historical conflicts like religious wars. It's that unwavering belief that, my way is the right way.
Right.
That really closes us off to growth and, new perspectives.
Yeah, I could see how that rigidity could lead to, some real clashes.
Yeah.
Like instead of being open to considering different viewpoints, you're just like, nope, I've got to figure it out.
Exactly.
But, one of the things that I thought was really interesting in the book is it talks about how pride can actually make us more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Because, pride makes me feel strong, makes me feel superior.
Right.
How could that possibly make me more susceptible to being attacked?
That is the paradox of pride.
Yeah.
That, when we're so consumed by pride in, our possessions, our appearance, our opinions, we become so hyper-focused on what other people think. We're constantly trying to protect our ego.
Yeah.
Which in itself is a very fragile thing.
Yeah. It's like we're building a fortress around our pride, but it's made of sand.
Okay.
The more we try to fortify it, the more likely it is to just crumble.
Exactly. And that defensiveness is what invites attack.
Huh.
It's like you're wearing a sign that says, I'm insecure, please criticize me.
Right.
So you become an easy target because you're so busy trying to prove yourself right.
Yeah, that makes me think about, people that I've met in my life that just have this quiet confidence.
Right.
They don't need to brag. They don't need to constantly, seek validation.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost seems like the source is suggesting that true self-esteem comes when you let go of that need to defend your pride.
Yeah, that's a key distinction the book makes.
Okay.
That true self-esteem isn't about puffing yourself up, but it's about finding that inner security that doesn't require constant validation.
Huh.
Think about a time when you felt truly at ease, truly confident.
Right.
Were you trying to impress other people, or were you just comfortable with being you?
That's a great point. It's like the difference between needing to be the loudest voice in the room versus feeling secure enough to just speak your truth, even if it's a whisper.
Exactly.
And that's a really powerful image.
And that inner peace is just one of the benefits that the book highlights when we let go of pride,
Yeah.
replacing that pride with, joy, gratitude, and simplicity leads to a greater peace of mind.
Yeah.
And even freedom from the fear of loss.
Yeah, I reminded of that story in the book about the woman who was so wealthy that she didn't even have burglar alarms.
Yeah.
Because she was like, somebody really needs something that bad. I'm happy to share.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody ever stole from her.
Yeah, that story perfectly illustrates how releasing that pride can lead to a sense of abundance.
Right.
Rather than scarcity.
Yeah.
If we're not clinging so tightly to things out of pride, we become less afraid of losing them.
That's a really huge insight, I think.
Yeah.
Seems like a big part of this is about kind of shifting our perspective.
Yeah.
And the book dives into that as well, especially when it comes to, how we view our opinions. It really challenges us to rethink them.
It does. Instead of, clinging to our opinions as these absolute truths that need to be defended,
Right.
the book suggests we consider them as preferences that we enjoy.
Okay.
And that's a really subtle shift in perspective.
Yeah.
But it can dramatically reduce conflict and open us up to new ideas.
That's a really interesting concept. Imagine how much stress and arguments could be avoided
Oh my God.
if we all just saw our opinions as, a preference rather than, this hill to die on.
Totally.
But, this isn't just about personal peace of mind. It can even impact broader progress, like in the field of science.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. Pride affecting scientific progress?
Yeah. It might seem surprising, but the book actually argues that pride can hinder scientific advancement.
Huh. How?
Because when scientists become so attached to their own theories or findings, they can be very resistant to new ideas or even admitting they were wrong. And it kind of creates a stagnation in the field.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we've seen this historically, right? Like new ideas always face pushback because they're threatening the established truths.
Exactly. And the book uses the example of how the understanding of the link between nutrition and mental health was initially met with huge resistance because it challenged the prevailing views at the time.
Wow.
It took a willingness to let go of preconceived notions
Right.
and embrace new evidence for that understanding to actually evolve.
So how do we actually like start to let go of this pride? It seems like it's so ingrained in us. The book offers some practical tools, right?
It does. And one of the first steps that it suggests is kind of examining the purpose of pride in our lives.
Yeah.
What is the payoff? What void are we trying to fill with it?
That's insightful. Because often maybe pride is a mask for deeper insecurities or feelings of inadequacy.
Precisely. And the more we acknowledge and address those underlying feelings, the less we need to cling to the crutch of pride. The book also challenges another common misconception, which is that, the opposite of pride is humility, at least not in the way we typically think of it.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with this. True humility isn't about, putting ourselves down or denying our accomplishments.
Right. True humility is about recognizing our inherent worth
Right.
without needing to constantly defend our ego.
Okay.
It's about being what the book calls immune to humiliation,
Oh.
because there's nothing to defend.
It's that quiet confidence that doesn't require external validation. Almost like saying you can't insult someone who's already surrendered.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And the book offers some beautiful antidotes to pride, things like joy and gratitude.
Yeah. Instead of seeking validation for our accomplishments, we can find fulfillment in the joy of the process itself.
And by cultivating gratitude for what we already have,
Right.
rather than focusing on what we lack, we shift from that mindset of scarcity to abundance.
Right. It's like that story in the book about the woman who owned these vast estates,
Oh, yeah.
but lived with such a sense of simplicity and detachment. She didn't worry about her possessions because she was willing to share.
And no one ever stole from her.
And no one ever stole from her. It seems counterintuitive, but maybe her lack of possessiveness actually made her less vulnerable.
Exactly. It goes back to that idea that what we resist persists. When we cling tightly to things out of pride, we actually create that fear and vulnerability. Letting go brings freedom and peace.
So it's not about denying ourselves nice things or achievements. It's about changing our relationship to them. But what about our deeply held opinions? Those can be hard to let go of.
Absolutely. And the book offers a really powerful tool for that as well. And that is viewing our opinions as preferences we enjoy,
Okay.
rather than absolute truths that need to be defended.
So choosing curiosity over conviction. It seems like such a subtle shift. But I can see how that would change our interactions entirely.
Yeah, instead of approaching conversations as battles to be won,
Right.
we can enter them with a genuine desire to understand another perspective.
Yeah.
And that openness can lead to much deeper connection and understanding.
It's about collaboration instead of competition.
Yeah.
I love that. This also reminds me of another point the book makes, which is that, our opinions are constantly evolving as we learn and grow.
Yeah, so being humble about our opinions actually allows us to be more adaptable
Right.
and open to new information. It can even help us avoid making, costly mistakes. The book gives the example of politicians, making promises based on a very superficial understanding of a complex situation.
Oh, wow.
They fail to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we don't always have all the answers. And that's okay.
In fact, embracing a beginner's mind can actually be a source of strength. It allows us to be open to new information and change course when needed.
And all of this goes back to, recognizing the detrimental effects of pride, even on a larger scale. Earlier, we talked about how it can hinder scientific progress.
Right. When pride makes scientists, resistant to admitting they were wrong or embracing new ideas, it can really delay important discoveries and advancements. Think about how long it took for the medical community to fully accept the mind-body connection, for example.
So letting go of pride isn't just about personal growth. It's about collective progress.
It's about creating a world where we are more open to learning from each other and evolving together. The book ultimately challenges us with this question. Are we willing to let go of pride and that sense of superiority that it gives us?
Because in doing so, we might actually discover a far greater sense of security and fulfillment. A security that comes from within, not from external validation.
And a fulfillment that comes from connecting with our true selves and embracing that journey of growth and learning.
It's about choosing humility over hubris
Okay.
and recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah, it's a really powerful message. It makes you wonder, what would happen if we all just tried to like let go of pride in just one area of our lives? Like what kind of ripple effect could that create?
That's the invitation the book leaves us with,
Yeah.
to kind of experiment with humility over defensiveness.
Right.
What happens when we ask ourselves, what if I'm not always right?
Right.
What if there's another way to see this?
Earlier we talked about how pride makes us vulnerable. But the source is suggesting that this shift towards humility can actually make us less vulnerable. How does that work?
It's paradoxical, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when we stop trying so hard to protect our ego, we actually become less susceptible to attack. It's like
Yeah.
we're disarming the critics by disarming ourselves.
Because there's nothing left to defend. We're no longer holding ourselves up as superior or infallible.
Right.
And that really changes the dynamic, I think. It does. And this shift can have a really profound impact on our relationships as well.
Yeah.
When we approach others with humility, it creates space for genuine connection and understanding.
We're not coming from a place of judgment or needing to be right.
Exactly.
There's a sense of openness and curiosity instead.
Exactly. And that openness can lead to incredible growth and transformation, both individually and collectively.
Well, this has been quite a journey, this deep dive into pride. We've uncovered, its hidden costs and explored the power of letting go.
It's a big one.
But it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels more like a beginning.
It is. The journey of letting go of pride is definitely an ongoing one.
Right.
But I think the book really gives us the tools and the encouragement to start.
Yeah.
And it begins with, simply being mindful of our pride and, consciously choosing humility instead.
Yeah. And that choice can open us up to a whole world of possibilities. Greater peace, joy, and connection. What a powerful reminder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep letting go.